Hello, I'm Rachel from Dwensa Garden in Ireland, and you're very welcome to this September garden tour. Now today it's the middle of September and we'll be taking a look at a few things in the garden. So there have been lots of changes, lots of new things and lots of plans of what to do. I also have a number of plants that are coming into flower now. I always like those late flowers. It's like an added bonus. And a good example is this Persicaria bank here behind me. So the Persicaria flowers in summer, but in autumn the pale pink turns to red, and I just love the bicoloured arrangement here on the bank. It's a great plant for a difficult area anyway. Also, we'll be having a look at jobs to do now in autumn. So, without further ado, let's get on with the video. It's a beautiful sunny day today, and it's just wonderful in autumn when you get days like this. It's just such a bonus, such a blessing, especially in light of the terrible summer we've had, but I'm not going to go on about that. I will tell you, however, that the first frosts are due tonight, which seems a bit early, so I really wanted to show you around the garden before the dahlias frost and that kind of thing. Now, for anyone who is new here, I just want to let you know that I garden in what roughly equates to as hardiness zone 9. And that's an indication of what I might get through the winter. Although, of course, in Ireland, we have extremely wet winters, which mean that it could be that a certain plant is hardy in zone 9, but it likes to be kept dry. Well, that is not a plant that we can deal with here in Ireland outdoors. Anyway, that's enough preambling, I guess, and we're going to start by heading in here, we're on the west side of the garden here, and this is the section that I call, it's dedicated to my son Josh. Come on, let's go. I have loads to share with you, and even in this section of the garden there have been big changes, specifically the replanting of this border here to my left. But I guess we will have a look first at things that are looking great at the moment, and I think the Persicaria bank is a great backdrop to the planting here. You should be able to see the colours and see the flowers in better detail this time round, because I'm filming for the first time for a complete video in 4K. Japanese anemones are, of course, looking absolutely fabulous at the moment. A great plant that you can grow in shade or you can grow in sun, but it does want to take over the world, so you do have to keep it somewhere where you can keep an eye on it. Also looking well at the moment is this Crinum that is such a late flower. Well, the first change I want to share with you is here on your left, and it's the complete replanting of this border here. So I felt that this border was just casting too much shadow on the rest of this section of the garden, and it was dominated by a large mock orange bush which has promptly been cut to the ground. Now, this is the way I deal with any large bushes that I don't want anymore. After a few years they will loosen and will be able to be removed, but at the moment I certainly don't have the manpower for taking it out. So I'll just leave it and plant around it, and if any new shoots come up, make sure to cut them off when I'm weeding the border. And once this went, then suddenly I had the opportunity to plant up with exciting perennials, ones that will add a lot of colour and oomph to the garden. Most of the planting in this border has come out and a lot of new stuff gone in. Some has been rearranged, like geraniums put more to the side. And now I feel that the Prunus serrula, which has a beautiful mahogany bark, can be seen and appreciated better. So what about the rest of this side of the garden? Well, my pond has a water lily in flower. And over here the dahlias and the cosmos are in full bloom. And the Echium wildpretii, which is that kind of bluey leafed thing at the front, is really getting going. But one of the things I really wanted to change over this side of the garden relates to the Persicaria bank behind me, because it is glorious. And what has happened over the years was that I had planted tall things to the back of this border, with the result that they grew big. And normally planting tall things to the back of a border is a good practice, except if you happen to have a fantastic pink backdrop that you don't want to obscure. So in the last few weeks, I have removed a lot of shrubs. So in here is where the forsythia used to be. There used to be a mock orange here. I kept the tree peony. That's just a verbascum. And one more mock orange over there came out, but that was a massive, really wide thing. And I'm glad to see it gone. And I now have a big space to fill. There's a few more junky things that are coming out, but I will then have a big space which I can plant up with low growing things. I suppose things that only come to about so high, to just give a feeling of space and less of a feeling of claustrophobia or enclosure that we were beginning to get in this section of the garden. I still have plenty of mock oranges over the other side. For anyone who's worried about my gorgeous June fragrant white garden, it's still here. But, you know, I am more appreciation of what's going here in the background in autumn. There is one more thing that needs to be done here. You will notice that there is a large swathe of leaves here behind, and that's Darmera peltata, a plant that is great, I suppose, but I just have too much of it now. And at this time of the year, it flowers really early on, kind of in winter, and then it's leafy for the rest of the season. And I guess, well, that's not enough for this part of the garden. From now on, I'm going to take it out and plant it up with nice flowery things. So lower planting and pink themed, pink, white, those kind of tones with a backdrop of pink is what's going to be going on in this garden from now on. Over this side, come on, we've got so much space. I can afford to play around and have one colour in one area and then have more reds and oranges elsewhere, which you're going to see right now. Okay, let's go and see the oranges. And over to this side of the garden where we still have a good bit of colour. The orange dahlias are looking nice at the moment, although we're kind of between flowerings, if you know what I mean. I've deadheaded them and they will come again, but I love these. Most of these were grown from seed, the single ones certainly, and I think that semi-cactus one was a cultivar at some stage a long time ago, so long ago that I don't know which one it is. But I think it's nice to have orange in autumn. It kind of dovetails with the natural colours that are going on. And it's been a funny old year because despite all the rain, I think some plants have just loved it all the more. And this Anthemis, I don't ever remember seeing it flower this late or seeing it stay in flower this late. It's usually long gone by this stage, yet we still have a good number of flowers even now. Well, my natural inclination would be to bring you into the garden through this arch where the Clematis are still in flower. But just to shake it up a bit, let's go through this other arch, which seems a bit darker and has a wheel, a wooden wheel at the very end beckoning us. But let's walk down here for a change. Well, as you can see, the bay trees which are on either side of the arch have been trimmed, and I think it's quite important coming into winter to trim up all of the bushes that you regularly trim, because they'll stay that way for the rest of the winter, and it's nice to look out and see some structure in the garden. My garden does tend to favour herbaceous plants, so it is very much like a kind of pancake effect in winter and not so much to see. So it's nice to take advantage of the structure that is there. A great plant for this time of year is this one here with the pink fluffy bits, and it's just coming into flower now, covered in buds that haven't yet opened. But this is a Sanguisorba called Pink Brushes, and it's quite a mighty plant. It gets a lot of leaves and gets into a big clump in time. So I've taken to reducing the number of leaves on it just to make it seem lighter than it is. Pink Brushes does hold itself more upright than other Sanguisorbas that have a more graceful bending presentation. So a great plant for this time of year. Of course we have cosmos, the white cosmos in full flower. Annuals just go on, don't they? But beyond them we have a red hot poker, and this one is one called caulescens, and it's loved in this part of the world because it looks like a succulent plant and yet it's hardy outdoors, which is always a plus. And this is just coming into poker, into orange flower. Over here we have the long border and a couple of plants doing a second flush. So we have the Alstroemeria Selina that you saw already in Josh's garden on the west side. It has a smattering of flowers again, which is always good. You can see too how the Monarda are putting on a second flush, well, some of them, and even the Astrantia that I cut back and fed with the ocean leaves seaweed fertilizer, well, that is reflowering too, little bits. Another great plant for late interest is this monkshood or aconite, and it is just coming into flower, a very tall one that needs a little bit of staking, but such a deep dark blue. If you look into the border you can see the yellow flowers of that really tall Rudbeckia herbstone, I think it's called, and how I failed to stake it properly because it's just flopping all over the place. It's flanked, of course, by eupatorium, which grows very tall and doesn't need staking. The long border still has colour in it, mostly from Alstroemeria Oriana, but also from the Indian summer one, which has reflowered. And the lilies at the back are still holding in there with some colour, and also the phlox. Now you may wonder why I haven't deadheaded the Alstroemeria by pulling out the stems. Well, the truth is I do want to divide these ones in autumn. Now I know the best time is April, it's not in autumn for dividing Alstroemeria, but these ones, Oriana, I know is a very strong one, and I have divided it in autumn before and know it can be done. But if I deadhead it completely, then I can't see where the plant is and I can't divide it because there's just nothing visible above the surface of the ground. So I'm leaving the spikes intact so that I can deal with the plant later. So there's a definite autumny feel to this border, but I think in order to make it still look attractive and to appreciate the oranges and the yellows and the browns more, it's important to do some basic maintenance. So what I like to do is to cut the edges, and if the edges are crisp and neat, then I think you can excuse some brownness in the borders. And over here we still have, I guess, the hydrangea still holding up well with its big white puffy fluff balls. This of course is Hydrangea Annabelle, and Sedum Autumn Joy coming into flower, but yeah, it's in too much shade so it does flop. This isn't my favourite sedum though. My favourite sedum is the variegated one which you just saw there in the main part of the long border. The flowers are the same colour, but the variegation on the leaf just gives that bit more added interest during the summertime. But before we leave this section, I just want to point out the red-leafed plant below the hydrangea. There's one here at the front, and there's also one over there behind it. I'm not sure if you can see. And I just love the autumn foliage on this plant. It's just fantastic. To have perennials with autumn foliage colour is a definite bonus. And in the lower arm of the long border, it is looking quite autumny and quite pretty at the moment as well. But one plant that really kind of stands out is this low-growing Saponaria. Look at that, such a hero of the early autumn border. It just flowers and flowers and flowers. This is a big clump. I've had this for, oh my goodness, 13 years. And here's a gorgeous variegated Phytolacca, which I just love beside the dark leaf of the Acer. Leaving aside the long border, you are probably familiar with this section of the garden because it's one I've talked about a lot. And the truth is that it's the least loved because it's the furthest away from the house. Now, that border over there, which has a lot of big trees and shrubs, has had some work done recently. And you may notice that the Acer tree has been pruned to a certain degree to allow light and air to get in and to stop it reaching out over the lawn so much. But I didn't stop there, and we now have a gap where the Fatsia used to be. Yes, I got rid of the big ancient Fatsia that just clumped up in that corner and took up so much space. It wasn't my favourite. Not a fan of Fatsias in general. If you like them, well, that's great, but they're not my favourite plant at all. But the result is that I now have a big space, and this space, although it looks quite messy at the moment because it hasn't been cleared out, it does have a Rhomnia tree in it, and the Rhomnia has beautiful white fried egg-like plants, and I think by removing the Fatsia it'll get more space and more light and do better. And I do want to mention bamboo because this isn't exactly the right time to deal with bamboo, but I always love to see the yellow legs on my bamboos in winter, especially when you have a bit of sunshine behind them. So the job I do with them is to thin them out, so remove maybe about 1/3 of the combs of the sticks, and then remove all leaves up to, I don't know, maybe about 4 foot, and that just allows the stems to be seen off to best effect. I did make a video on pruning bamboo, which I will link to at the end of this one. There's loads of lovely autumn colour around in the garden at the moment. Bushes and trees are getting their reds and their oranges in. I mean, just look at that, it's fantastic. And things that you don't necessarily expect will have autumn colour, like some of the viburnums, have the most amazing, amazing tinges. The yellows, of course, from grasses. Stipa gigantea is this one here, and acers really kind of contrast to the dark reds and show them off to best effect. Oh no, here's the rain again, second time during this video. Okay, I do want to show you something up at the very top. Some rearranging I've been doing with the green border in front of the glass house. So come on, let's go! So we made it up here to this border, and oh, rain is on, rain is off, rain is on, rain is off. And my neighbour, whose sound you probably hear in the background, has the same idea because he's trying to strim. So whenever the rain stops, he's out as well as me. But anyway, we got up here to the border in front of the greenhouse. And you may recall that recently I replanted a section of it with Rudbeckia, plant I bought at Kilmurray Nursery, and various other things, so it's kind of got a yellow theme going on. But also recently I bit the bullet and decided to get rid of my Diplerina, which is a big plant. Now, I originally planted it because it was unusual, and I grew it because it was unusual. I'm all about unusual plants, but you have to make assessments on these things, and I began to realise that it wasn't adding anything to the border, so I bit the bullet and out it came. And in its stead I have planted the red delphinium I bought earlier on in the year. And look, there's a little colchicum that's decided to poke its head up. They're all peeping at the moment, but just in your very honour today, one is opened. And over this side of the border, there's a more orangey, reddy kind of vibe going on. I like the colours over here. I guess, you know, the other side is more yellow, but it's kind of end of season yellow. So you can have more than one colour scheme in your border. You can have one colour earlier on in the season, and then that can change to something else when the first flowers fade. This eupatorium at the back has its cards marked. It is really on the way out. It has just taken over so much space. I guess the one saving grace it has is that it stands up without staking. And so the weather has driven us to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found stuff in there that's of interest and perhaps will be of use in your gardening projects. And do stay tuned for more information on the other projects that are going to take place here as the autumn progresses. Yeah, that's all to say. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye!